Good morning. Today's improved budget forecast shows that Democratic leadership continues to have Minnesota on the right path. Our economy continues to outpace expectations, and our financial future is stable. The budget that Democrats enacted in the historically productive 2023 session has laid the groundwork for long-term prosperity, a growing middle class, and a future where every Minnesotan has the opportunity to succeed and build a better life. We have surpluses as far as the eye can see, though we certainly are cognizant of that structural imbalance in the tails. While our broader economic indicators remain strong and corporate profits are still soaring, we know that there are Minnesotans who are not doing as well, and that's why we'll continue to focus on cutting costs for Minnesotans in childcare, in housing, and in healthcare, and we'll continue to prioritize workers because we know prioritizing workers is the key to a long-term stable economy. Minnesota's workers outpace the nation in terms of their productivity. Labor force participation is very high in our state. You see that continues to be very high. Unemployment is very low. This economy is strong on the backs of Minnesota workers, and they are therefore our priority at the legislature. We will continue to make sure that they get the pay and the benefits and the working conditions that they deserve. The main focus of our work in the 24 session will be a capital investment bill. There are communities all over the state of Minnesota in need of local road improvement, bridge improvement, wastewater infrastructure, and the budget forecast says that we have the opportunity to do decent investments in our communities across the state. Now, with this forecast in hand, we will go back to our caucus. I speak on behalf of the caucus, have not had a chance to visit with them about this forecast in detail yet, except for a few texts from people asking for things. But to make sure that I'm in alignment with our caucus, we'll take a look at the numbers, and then we'll spend a lot of quality time, Senator Murphy and the governor and I, in what we lovingly refer to as the Hotel California, the governor's cabinet room, where we will hope to come to early budget targets and have another productive and on-time finish.
Thank you, Speaker Hortman, and that's the first Hotel California reference that I've heard of, so I'll pack my bag. I was up early this morning before the sun came up, like so many Minnesotans, getting ready for work. And I always want to remind Minnesotans that my colleagues and I come to work here every single day with their lives and our future in mind. And I want Minnesotans to know that on this Good News Day, that we're going to continue to do the important work that they have sent us here to do to improve their lives and to build a future for everybody in the state of Minnesota. It is a good news day for us. This is a good forecast. It is a proof point of the work that we have done in this last biennium for the people of Minnesota. We see that this is a great place, Minnesota, to raise families, to run a business, and to experience opportunity and prosperity. And we're going to continue to work to improve the lives of Minnesotans. After years and years of gridlock and listening to Minnesotans about the things that they have asked us to do, you saw us together put in place a budget and policy to support them, investing in child care affordability, in health care, in schools, in workforce development, broadband, housing, and more. These are issues that have dogged Minnesota for years. And because of the gridlock of the 4 and 5 years before this biennium, we didn't make progress. We did in this last session, passing a durable budget for the people of Minnesota, focused squarely on them. And we're seeing the results of that in this budget forecast. So we're going to continue to do the work that we're sent here to do for the people of Minnesota. We're going to do it with confidence and prudence, knowing that a structurally balanced budget is the foundation for the work that we're going to do in the future, and it is the foundation for the policies put in place meant to improve the lives of people of Minnesota. So, like Speaker Hortman, I will go back to our caucus. We will begin the work of the rest of the session. Capital bonding, of course, is at the top of the list, but don't sleep on policy. The work that Senator Seeberger has been doing on EMS is meant to reduce costs for people. The work that a number of our members are doing, whether it is Senator Bolden in reducing costs by attacking medical debt, those policies that we will see come through the session along with capital bonding are meant to make sure that the economy for the people of Minnesota works for them. That's our aim. I'm grateful to be here today. Thank you.
We're hearing a lot policy, bonding. What about spending, demand for unmet needs? The governor mentioned maybe one-time spending would be the thing he'd still have an appetite. Do you share that? And what types of things might get that one-time spending this time?
I think that we share the objective of keeping long-term fiscal stability for the state of Minnesota. We have a very nice budget reserve that is, I think, as full as it's ever been. It's great that we have the 3.7 in the near term, but we have our eyes on that structural imbalance in the tail. So I do not foresee making any commitments to spending that we can't pay for.
The deficit, by the way, Republicans have already put press releases.
It is not a deficit. This is so simple. We have 3.7 billion extra right now, and we have a projected $1.5 billion imbalance in the tails. That means if we don't spend any money this year at all, we'd have a $2.2 billion surplus.
The governor proposed $982 million in bonding back in January, and that is apparently what MMB is using for their figures. Would you be trying to go higher than that at any point?
So I would say that's not exactly right. So the governor had a proposal that was 830 in debt, but then also cash on top of that. So the new forecast, the guidelines, the debt guidelines have changed. So the size of the indebtedness part of the bonding bill will change, but also we will now talk about whether there will be a cash component. We were not talking about a cash component in the House. I told our bonding chair, don't count on any cash. He would like some cash now.
Would that be potentially towards EMS? You mentioned Senator Seeberger's work on that, and they've asked for $120 million in emergency funding.
I think Senator Seeberger and others are working on a really important issue for the people of Minnesota, and it will be among the things that I consider as we move forward through this session. We're grateful about our position on capital investment, and I've also heard from our chair, Sandy Pappas, making her case this morning. That is the work that we need to do going forward now to make sure we are clear about what we want to do with this forecast and building on it. And this part is really important. We put a budget in place that's structurally balanced. I understand the political talking points about what that means, but for Minnesotans, it is really important that we're clear that we passed a durable budget. It is balanced according to the Constitution, and we have an opportunity going forward in the budget in the next cycle to continue the work that we're doing for the people of Minnesota. To say that there is a deficit is false.
Madam Speaker, Madam.
You have 53 members, I think it is, that have never been in the minority. And as a more veteran member, do you have to educate them on decisions made now can affect the election later in the year? Or do you have to do some tempering based on that they haven't been in the minority?
Well, I don't think that the work that we do at the legislative session this year has really a direct impact on the election. So, I think a lot of times I've seen in the 20 years that I've served, I have seen people behave during session in a way that they think they're gaming the election. And the election has never been about what people think it's going to be about. So I think what we have to focus on is doing the work that we need to do for the people of Minnesota in a bipartisan way. It's not to our advantage to not include Republicans and do a cash-only bonding bill. It's not to their advantage to fail to participate in a general obligation bonding bill and try to show, that deals can't be reached. Because the voters ultimately are going to cast their votes in November on issues that it would be hard for us to foresee right now. In 2019, we certainly didn't foresee the pandemic and the murder of George Floyd and the civil unrest. And that's what the election turned to be about. So I think that what I say to our 53 members who've never served in the minority is you don't know how good you have it. Just, the words Speaker Kurt Doubt. Let that sit with you for a while, but I don't think that they can really understand having never been there.
Is there a path forward for the public option for Minnesota Care?
Can you repeat your question?
Is there a path forward for the public option for Minnesota Care, considering this budget picture?
So much work by both legislators and the administration taking a look at this public option has yielded for us, I think, a very strong potential path. And that will be the work of both the House and the Senate, and considering what we got from the administration to figure out how we move forward. I think it's a really important question for the people of Minnesota. As I spent this summer, this interim, listening to Minnesotans talk about what they're experiencing in our current healthcare system, they may have coverage, but they can't afford their care. I think it's going to be important for us to consider the ways in which we can make sure that people have access to meaningful care. Public option is one of those routes. So we will be considering it. It is important, regardless of the forecast, that we find a path forward on that, from my perspective.
Speaker and Madam Leader, the governor's pretty adamant about school lunches and having that have enough money. Is that an area that, if necessary, would be, in your judgment, prudent and not pushing us into potential deficit or increasing the structural imbalance?
Well, I would say on universal school meals, we had a very strong agreement last year, which was why we moved out ahead of any other budget bill. And our commitment to continuing universal school meals is very strong. I've talked to kids out there since we enacted it and asked, what do you think of free breakfast and free lunch? And what they would like us to focus on is improving the quality of the food that they're eating. They're very happy that they're not paying for it, but they would like more good choices.
If more money is necessary to prop it up, because demand is very high, you would both be amenable to that? Am I reading it correctly or no?
It's a forecasted program, so we won't have to appropriate for that, but there is nothing more important than feeding our children.
Seeing those changes in corporate profits, are you guys content with where the corporate tax rate is right now?
Well, that's an interesting question. Go ahead.
I think the forecast is showing us that corporations in Minnesota are doing very well. And they are contributing to our lives, and they are contributing to our economy, and they are contributing to the state's budget. That's important. That's good. I'm grateful that they are earning so much. I think the tax rate that we have right now is working for the people of Minnesota. And it's important, this part. At the end of last session, those who took a look at the work that had been done by our tax chairs and the tax code demonstrated that we moved policy to make sure that our tax code is the most fair in the state of Minnesota. That's good for Minnesotans, and we should always keep our eye on that.
When we passed the fix on the standard deduction, our tax chair gave a really nice speech about all the taxes we had cut for business under the leadership of, she was very kind, she phrased it as under the leadership of Speaker Hortman. The $2.7 billion that we put in the unemployment insurance trust fund, and tax cuts in 2019, tax cuts in 2021. I think in Minnesota, we have to look at the difference between the sticker price and what's actually paid. So we have a higher rate, but we have a lot more deductions and credits than other states. So our effective tax rate is really right in the middle of the pack. And I think just as colleges and universities have looked at changing the sticker price for tuition, instead of saying the tuition is pretty high, but we'll give you tons of financial aid, they're now trying to put out a number that more accurately reflects what students will pay, so they choose to go and they're not scared off by that sticker price. So I think we have to look at the effective tax rate and see if we can get the published tax rate to be closer to the effective tax rate.
How do you balance all the competing priorities for additional spending? There's not that much to work with. You hear exercise caution, but there's a lot of people who are rolling out, I would like to make big investments in childcare or EMS, all these things. How are you approaching that from a leadership perspective?
Well, so the way we've always done it is I'll meet individually with all of the chairs, and they are supposed to be meeting with the DFLers on their committee and also in touch with their Republican leads to get the Republican perspective. We'll take all that input, we'll bring it to the negotiating table, and then I think is also true in the Senate, we'll have very long caucus conversations where we talk about our priorities together and the things we value. We had a retreat January 30th and 31st where we spent 2 days together coming up with our priorities, and so I already have a pretty good sense of where the caucus is. So there's some things we didn't get done last year that are pretty important we'd like to get done this year, but it will be all of us together making that decision.
Some of the things that didn't get done last year.
Well, on my tiny little list is agri. We kind of had an oops when we set the target in the tails for agri. So we're a little short. It's not that much money. I want to say it's in the neighborhood of $15 million. We reached an agreement on PTSD benefits for police and fire, and we funded it in the short term. We're going to have to look at that cost data and see what the tails cost is. And, but we gave a lot in LGA and CPA, local government aid and county program aid, and that's increasing over time. That's, got an inflationary increase. So it may be that those things counteract the PTSD settlement that we reached last year. But those are my small things that I'm thinking of.
And you mentioned at the top, getting together for budget targets, have you said, or do you have an anticipation of when you're going to release budget targets?
We meet with governor's team pretty much constantly, and we'll probably be meeting a lot more. The way we did it last year was we worked as hard as we could to get targets as early as possible, and I will endeavor to do that again, but I don't think we have a timeline yet.
What about attracting more workers here? The governor talked about a marketing campaign, and he hasn't been shy about saying, yeah, move to Minnesota to raise your kids, to have reproductive freedom, particularly as the country sees to female leaders. Those issues are back, reproductive care. Talk about how you market Minnesota and get more of those workers here the state still needs.
So obviously, the decision made by the Alabama Supreme Court on IVF is the next chapter in the debate started by the Supreme Court with the Dobbs decision on reproductive freedom. We know that it is a critical issue for Minnesotans and for Americans. And people are going to choose where they live, especially when you think about young people. They're going to choose where they live knowing what states stand for. And we've been crystal clear on this issue of freedom, on reproductive freedom. So I do think that that is an important factor as people make decisions about where they may go to school and where they set up their lives following school. That's important. But I think the good news of this forecast and what we're seeing happening as a result of the budget that we put in place is as important as that one question when we think about where you choose to live. I want to live in a place where I can raise my family, where childcare is affordable, where I can get access to meaningful health care, where the wages in my job support my family, where broadband means I can live wherever I choose to. The transportation system is modern and functioning and works for us. Those are the things that we invested in. Those are the things that Minnesotans asked us to invest in. And I think what we're seeing in this forecast is a demonstration that when we do that work and we focus on the people of Minnesota, we can build a future that includes everybody, and that's going to drive workers and people to come to the state of Minnesota.
Okay, time for one more.
Madam Speaker, are you going to have the SRO bill up on the floor on Monday? Is that the plan?
We are.
Yeah, I guess the hearing hasn't started in the Senate on that, but there's some equivocation on the part of some folks as to whether, in fact, that bill has support in the Senate, the bill that appears to be moving forward in the House. Did that concern you at all? I'd like to give the majority leader a chance to comment on that, too.
For sure.
I will just say that when I leave here, I'm going to go back to committee because I'm on the Finance Committee. So I'm going to be heading out of here soon.
Well, Tuesday night, we received a letter from law enforcement endorsing the bill as amended. And so we do expect bipartisan support, and we do expect that bill to pass off of the floor on Monday with bipartisan support. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if it had bipartisan support in the Senate. It should. It is a bill that law enforcement and members of the community, the cities, and education professionals have worked very hard on. And it's time to get it in the rearview mirror and get those SROs back where they want to be in the schools.
Senator Duckworth says it could be a better bill. Any comments on that?
I think it's a very strong bill that has been the work of months by members of both bodies, the law enforcement community, by educators, by people representing students. I'm really proud of the work of Representative Frazier and Senator Bonnie Westland in bringing this together in a way that I think it'll become law.
Thank you.